Welcome to the July 11th, gosh, that's hard to believe, 2024 Inspiring Author Conversations. It's like the whole year has just gone way so fast. I'm Kathy Davis, Davis Creative Publishing. Today we'll be speaking with Jim Swan about solopreneurs and how we can double our profits in under 12 months. I'm quite excited about hearing how that works. Our theme for 2024 is growing your business by the book. Each month, we welcome guests to inspire authors by sharing their knowledge, their wisdom, opportunities, and all kinds of new ideas. Help me welcome Jim Swan. He's a business strategist, consultant working with small businesses eager to become medium-sized businesses. He believes every challenge faced by the small business is eased with additional revenue. That makes a whole lot of sense coming in the door. Creating suites of strategies and coaching businesses and their owners through their implementation allows his clients to realize revenue profit growth that is both dependable and predictable. On average, last year, his clients realized new annual revenue of $128,000. That sounds pretty good to me. So welcome, Jim. I'm thrilled you could be here today.
Thank you, Kathy. I appreciate the invitation, and it's great to join you.
So tell us, how did you get started in this? What your big why is that drives, why do you like helping people make more money?
Great question. And I'll tell you the condensed version of the story. Back in the early 1990s, seems like ancient history at this point, I started a small business in Los Angeles. And over the coming years, almost 16 years, we built it up to a point where we had a team of 14. We had 2 offices, Beverly Hills and Boston, and we had annual revenue of hovering right around $10 million. So we were doing okay. It was a lot of hard work, but we had a lot of fun, and I was working with great people. And then we ran smack dab into the economy going sideways in the fall of 2028. And for us, and given the clientele that we were working with, which were all very high net worth individuals, we went from an active client list of 30 the 1st of October of 2028. And by the middle of November, we had 2 active clients. No one could be seen spending money at that time, even on their lovely homes and vacation homes. And there was no coming back from that. We tried, we gave it our best, tried to do everything we could. There was just no coming back from it. And I will never forget the feeling of having everything taken away from me, because thinking I was doing the right thing, I tapped into the revenue or into the equity in my home to try to prop the business up to get us over this hump. And then a month and a half later, the early part of December in 2028, the real estate bubble burst in Los Angeles. And overnight, I was upside down on $1.8 million worth of real estate that I couldn't sell. And I lost the house and I lost the business. I lost it all. And I don't wish that for anybody. Because it really, really sucks. So I pivoted, because I did have to pay some bills. I had a lot of them, actually. But I pivoted into consulting. We had built that business entirely on digital in the digital world. We were early adopters on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And people began to ask, well, how'd you do that? And how'd you build such a successful business? And that was my first entree into consulting work. Over the years, that's grown and evolved. And when I discovered this idea that I could, drawing on that experience, that I could help business owners very specifically grow their revenue and increase their profits, I was all in. Because if I can help a small business owner succeed where others might not, I'll do that all day long, and I'll do it with a smile on my face.
Yeah. Yeah, it's that hero's journey story of, hitting that bump in the road, falling flat on our face, finding a way to get back up, dust ourselves off, and keep going. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, it gave me goosebumps hearing that. So what is a basic structure for what's the first conversation you might have when you're talking to someone like us? Everyone here has their own business. They're authors and or also business owners themselves. And so where do we start when we want to start thinking about, okay, great, how can we double our profits?
A couple of I'll start with one foundational concept around money, and I'll I'll illustrate it by asking y'all a question. If I were to offer you in one hand, $1 million cash, or in the other hand, the opportunity to have 1 cent that doubles in value every single day for the next 30 days, which option might you take? And if you know the answer to this, don't tell anybody, but think about it. $1 million cash or a penny that just doubles in value every day for 30 days. Anybody want to guess? I'll tell you the answer. You would be a wise individual if you chose the penny, because when you apply the principles of compounding value, that penny in 30 days, if it doubles in value every day, will grow to a little over $5.4 million. So you'll come out ahead by a factor of almost 4.5 times by selecting the penny. And it's that principle of compounding value that we use as a core principle in working with our clients. We take a look at the business, at the dreams and the visions of the business owner, where they want to go. And we pull from a library that we've developed of we're approaching 50 now, unique strategies that help business owners grow their revenue and increase profits. And we put together a list of 10 or 12 of those strategies. And then over the course of a year, we work with that business owner on implementing those strategies, putting them into practice in their business. And if each one of those strategies grows revenue by a relatively small amount, 3%, 5%, and those start to stack on top of each other, applying that principle of compounding value, compounding numbers, it's really kind of exciting, the growth potential that can happen even in a year. That's how we get the numbers like $120,000+ of new revenue for a business. And it's possible for everyone here today.
Well, that's my next question is there a specific genre that you work in, or is this applicable to most businesses?
So over the years, I've worked with a wide range of businesses. We've done manufacturing, we've done digital, we've done e-commerce, we've done brick and mortar retail. Mm-hmm. When COVID happened, out of necessity, we pivoted and we became more generalist in our approach rather than very laser focused in our niche. And it opened up the opportunity to work with solopreneurs, with coaches, consultants, authors, public speakers. Mm-hmm. It changed the way we approached our work, because we had gone from working with corporations who maybe had, $1.5 million, $2 million in annual revenue, very different business entities than a solopreneur who's working hard on their business. And so we shifted our approach. We recrafted some of our offerings to apply them to the solopreneur. And what we discovered is that the sound business principles that work for more established businesses also work for solopreneurs.
That's funny, because I remember 2008 very well. I had been downsized in December 2003, and then my husband was downsized in 2008. And so that was the pivotal moment where it's like, oh, this is a full-time job now for both of us. Yeah. And what we came out of corporate, I came out of Bank of America, and the same principles that we used in branding and marketing for those global corporations is a lot of what we now share also with our smaller solopreneur clients. And being a solopreneur ourselves, even though there's, we have a team of, I don't know, depending on the day, anywhere from 12 to 20, but the principles are the same. Yeah. And that's what I love.
They really are.
Can you give us a story, since we're talking about storytelling, about one of your clients that may have been a smaller business like those represented here, and kind of give us an idea of what it would be like to work with you?
Absolutely. We start off every conversation with someone, whether they're someone we're introduced to or someone that hears me speak, with a little thing that we call a value or a profit accelerator experience. Mm-hmm. It's about a 30-minute experience where we sit down and we use this really wonderful software program, because trust me, I can't do all the math the way it does. But we plug in some numbers. We plug in what was last year's revenue for the business. We figure out what the gross and net profit margins as a percentage were for that business. And then we pull 2 or 3 strategies off the shelf. And by strategies, I mean, it can be things as simple and as sometimes obvious as, oh, I don't know, raising your prices.
Yeah.
You'd be surprised how much terror is flashed across the screen of many business owners, small business owners, when I talk about raising prices. It's terrifying for us. Corporate America has raised it to an art form. They do it sometimes on a weekly basis. Small business owners, much more hesitant. But we walk them through a series of just basic math. Let's take a look at, what would a 5% price increase look like for your business? Well, often when we project it out over a 12-month period, that 5% increase can be for a solopreneur, it could be 5, 8, sometimes $10,000 of new revenue over the course of a year. And that's meaningful money. So if we can help them understand that they're not going to lose their client base, sometimes, so I'll walk you through a scenario. I asked the question, if you walked into your favorite restaurant tonight and you sat down to order your favorite meal that you order every time you go to that restaurant, and then you notice that the price had been increased by 5%, are you really going to get up and walk out of that restaurant?
Yeah.
And of course, the answer is always no. So what we're suggesting, or might be suggesting to a small business owner, is a price increase of 3 or 5 or maybe 7%. And when we look at the increase of income, let's say it was $10,000 of new revenue that could come to you just from that price increase. We then work backwards and we calculate how many clients you would have to lose to offset that price, that increase in revenue, just to bring you back to zero, to where you are right now. So there's no loss, there's no gain. And often that means losing 10 or 12, sometimes as many as 15% of your existing clients. And then again, we just ask a question, do you really think you're going to lose 10% of your client base from a 5% price increase?
Yeah.
And the answer generally is no. What we learn from that experience is they often lose a client or two, and they're always the clients that are the hardest ones to work with. And they're the ones that they or their team are most happy to see go. So, where's the harm in that?
That's right. Yeah. Yeah. What kind of reaction do your clients usually get once they see that one of the formulas that you've suggested is actually starting to come to fruition? Tell us a little bit about that experience.
Oh, it's great excitement. I can share with you. Am I able to share my screen, Kathy,
I can,
with the group
yeah,
today? Is that an option?
Sure is.
Because what I can do, we've created a little simulator where we can actually in real time see what some of these numbers look like. And I'll let you be the judge of the looks on people's face when they realize what's possible.
I'll make you a co-host. There we go.
Lovely. Let me just do a quick screen share here and we can take a look at this together. Y'all should be able to see this now.
We can see.
Can you see it?
We got it. Yeah.
Wonderful. So what I've done, I just dropped in $50,000 of annual revenue here. That might be higher, that might be lower than what you as an individual realized last year. I've done some research, solopreneurs, particularly coaches, and book authors, national average gross profit margins as a percentage around 74%, net profit margins around 8%. And then down here, so I talked earlier about a library of almost 50 different types of strategies. Well, this is our core group of strategies, Kathy. These are the ones that we go to the most and that most of our business owners have some resonance with, or at least some understanding. And I'll just race through them real quickly. Cutting costs, market dominating position. What is it about you, your book, your speaking presentation that differentiates you from everybody else in the market? What's your compelling offer? Increase of prices. We've just talked about that. Upselling and cross-selling. You could bundle your offerings. You could downsell. And I won't take time to go into too much detail on any of these, but I am happy to answer any questions around them. Creating additional products or services, drip campaigns, tapping into an email list, building alliances and joint ventures, just flat out generating more leads. Where can I go to get more leads, talk to more people? And then just the broad topic of digital marketing. So these are 12 areas that are pretty common for most every business. And what we've got here, we've got percentage of impact. And down here at the bottom, we see our current revenue is $50,000. And based on our percentages that we entered up above, that tells us that we've got a current profit level of about $4,000 on that revenue. Once all the bills are paid, everything's taken care of, we should have $4,000 or thereabouts sitting in our bank account. But if we just across the board make a change to all of these areas, let's just go with a 3% increase. And imagine spending 1 month on each of these areas of focus, each of these strategies.
Mhm.
And over the course of 12 months, applying these and growing this 3% revenue increase in each of these categories, look what happens to our revenue. We go from $50,000 to just shy of $70,000 in revenue for the year. But look what happens to our profit. We go from $4,000 to almost $20,000 of profit.
It's a big difference.
It's a big difference.
Mhm.
And I'm looking at faces smiling and people are taking notes. It's a noticeable difference. And I don't know about you, but year over year, if I could go from $4,000 sitting in my bank account at the end of the year to $20,000, are there things I could do with that $20,000? Of course there are. We could reinvest it in the business. We could educate ourselves more. We could invest in a virtual assistant. The list is long of the things that we could do with that additional money. So that's just a sort of a sampling of what's possible when we start playing around with small incremental growth in our businesses in a number of different categories, and then having built into the offer, having an accountability coach, someone who week over week not only is a resource for information and for execution, but just holds you accountable. Make sure that you're showing up and doing the things that you say you're going to do, with the net result being you'll see your revenue increase and your profits rise.
I do want to remind everybody, if you do have a question, drop it into the chat, and I will make sure your question gets answered. So as we approach the fall, I think everyone on the call is pretty much aware that it's a presidential election year. And I know trend wise, it's typically also a time where people tend to hold on to their money. And so as a small business owner, how do you address that? And, whether it's a recessionary time like we went through in 2008 or presidential election year, you see lots of things fluctuate.
No, we do. And there's no crystal ball that's going to tell us, even what's going to happen tomorrow. Just before we got on the call here today, I saw just a headline, I don't know the details, but that inflation has dropped. And with that drop, it's just announced today that the Fed is now reconsidering lowering interest rates. How interesting is that? Who would have predicted that? That wasn't on my game card yesterday morning at this time. But a really good question, Kathy. And when I talk to business owners, and I deal with this myself, I work on this. So many years ago, when I had my earlier business, I had a very, very successful client. He was a multi-billionaire in the iron industry. And he told me many times, he said, Jim, save your pennies so you've got money to invest when other people are too afraid to invest. And I thought, okay. And a few times I've been able to apply that in my life, and I haven't gotten burned. So thank goodness for that. And I maybe have come out ahead a few times. So I would never put myself in a position to advise someone on how to invest their money. But in times when people are hesitant, if you take a bold step, it can often bring real rewards to you. So obviously everybody's situation is different. I never advocate, getting in over your head, because that's just foolishness, no matter what conversation we're having. But if you can take time to build your business when other people are nervous and are too hesitant, who knows how far ahead you might be able to end up.
Well, and I know early in the pandemic, some of the best advice that I got was don't change your prices, add value. And that's kind of perhaps where we are again, perhaps not as traumatic, but the idea being is what is it that you can give? One more thing that sets you above and beyond, helps you stand out against that competition.
Exactly. I came across this in a book, and I'm going to be hard pressed to remember the book that I was reading, but there was a little formula for this. Sit down and write out a description of the problem that you're offering, whether it's your book or your teaching or your course. What is the problem that you solve?
Yeah.
And then write a list of all the things that your client who buys and invests in that solution, everything that they experience before they buy from you, and everything that they experience after they buy from you. And then start figuring out ways to solve all of those problems.
That's a
And
great
those then become your value add. Oh, I'm so excited that you invested in my course. And I know that in about 2.5 weeks, you're going to be struggling with this. And I've got this white paper that I could offer to you as a bonus, as a value add on top of this thing that you've already invested in. Yeah, it gets pretty exciting.
And we have that conversation even with authors around their book is, what does your target audience wake up in the middle of the night worried about?
Yeah.
And that's what we want to make sure you're answering in this manuscript that you're providing.
Absolutely.
Anybody can write a book. We just want to make sure you're going to write a good one that's going to answer those questions. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And then just to expand it, don't just be limited to that. Think of the add-ons. Think of those value adds that could be added to that book. Maybe it's an audio tape of you addressing another one of the challenges that your readers are going to face. And I get that in addition to this book or this thing that I've already purchased. And suddenly your fan has become a raving fan. And that's what we all want.
Well, and the other thing that I noticed that was on your list is that what I call joint ventures, the partnerships that you create. Can you talk a little bit about how you have seen that work for some of your clients?
Oh, absolutely. In fact, at real time, this was a conversation I had with a client last Friday. She is a therapist who specializes in treatment of ADHD. And she has written a book exploring a new treatment process that she has developed and tested and that she's introducing into the world of therapists, licensed therapy. She, however, is also launching a business, which is why she engaged us to create teaching modules and licensing for therapists in this specific type of therapy. And we were brainstorming ways to expand the reach of this offering that she has. And I said, well, you could create an alliance with, and then I asked her to brainstorm and come up with a list of 6 major movers and shakers. So we had identified that her target audience was therapists, typically female between the ages of, I think it was 30 and 55. And I said, okay, so who else is talking to women between the ages of 30 and 55 in the self-help world that comes to mind? And all of a sudden she had a list of 6. And now we are in the process of reaching out to that entire list to do a simple thing, to have them take a look at the book that she's creating. It doesn't compete with anything that they currently offer. It just so happens we're talking to the same market, to the same group of people. And if they like what they read and believe that their audience could benefit from this additional bit of information, then we want to create a joint venture with them, an opportunity for us to provide at discounted cost to their readership or following access to this book, pre-orders for the book and all of that. And I mean, I've done this in the past in a number of different environments, and it's incredible. When we did the research on some of the names on her list, these are people that have followings in the millions.
Yeah.
And if we just hit one, if we can just establish a relationship with one, it could be very exciting for our project.
Now, do you have people on your team that help your clients develop their teaching modules or they're on their online presence, or do you just recommend they go find somebody? Do you have people on your team?
Great question. I have people on my team who have experience in those areas, because because we don't live and breathe that work every single day. What we find better is I go to my contact list and I say, okay, we might want to enhance your public speaking skills, or we might want to enhance your presentation skills. And I've got these three amazing people that I've worked with over the years who are really top of their field in that area. And we make an introduction and we let our client work with them.
Well, and I know because we work with a lot of speakers, a big question that I get a lot is, how can I go from a free speaker at our local chambers to a paid speaker and start picking up that additional income? Do you have a part of your team that helps work with people on that also?
Yeah, we've got a number of different strategies around that, both reaching out to promoters who we know have, series of either live or digital stages that they're looking to fill, paid and some unpaid. And then we've got internally just a series of strategies, some very simple, but very, very effective in sort of organically taking you to that level. My first question when somebody says I need help, in making that transition is, tell me the story about the work that you've put in to date. And I better hear that you've done a presentation to every chamber of commerce within 100 miles of your house, or every church within 50 miles of your house, that you've knocked on every single door, because I promise you, if you do enough of those freebies locally, word will begin to spread, people will begin to talk, and your phone will ring. And it'll be, hey, we'd love to have you come and talk for our professional organization or our nurses union or our, you fill in the blanks. And invariably that becomes paid speaking engagements, and you begin to build your book of business around that.
Yeah. Yeah, that's awesome. And it just went out of my mind. My next question was about marketing, and how much I'll back up. The second most asked question we get is marketing their new business. And for me, when someone asks me a marketing question, that's all encompassing. It's anywhere, not just social media, but it's that whole brand image. Do you get into, and can you tell us a story about how adjusting a brand image or a brand slightly, tweaking it a little bit, has impacted working with one of your clients?
Absolutely. Almost every client we work with, honestly, we touch on this at some point in the journey, because sometimes, I would say it often involves an investment by the business owner, whether it's creating a website because they don't have one, or updating a website that might have cobwebs on it, because it hasn't been updated for a while. I've got one of those myself, so I know what I'm talking about. We like to put that towards the end of the 10 or 12 strategies that we work on, because I would much rather go to a business owner who I know has been able to bank $15,000 or $20,000 of extra income for this year first, before I say, okay, now this one's going to require you to write a check, and we want to talk about doing this, right, whatever it might be. Maybe it's hiring a part-time social media manager, to manage your Facebook and your Twitter, your Instagram, or whatever the accounts are that you have. But yeah, I can think of one that we worked on recently. She was this is actually a great story, 74-year-old retiree. She was an artist by profession, by passion. She had worked in the restaurant industry all of her life, retired. She'd moved here to Maine. I actually met her, before COVID, face to face. We actually had coffee. Imagine that. And she came to me just before COVID, and she said, I've always had this dream of teaching children art. And she was an incredible artist and a gentle soul. And as soon as she said it, I could see it happening. And she was starting with nothing. I mean, didn't have a website, didn't have anything. And so we helped her with some simple branding, just taking some of her art and using it in her branding. Created a really simple one-page website for her. And I spoke with Candy 2 weekends ago. She's opening her third location. She's now adding adult art classes to the art classes she did for elementary school, preschool and elementary school children during COVID. She opened up her home. She had a beautiful studio in her home, and she would have neighborhood children come over for art classes 2 afternoons a week. And
Awesome.
using the website, using some simple branding, getting clear on who it was she was talking to.
Mhm.
You know, she's 77 now,
Wow.
and she's got this kind of hopping little business happening, and just, yeah, I never see her without a smile on her face.
Well, yeah, how fun is that
Yeah.
to finally be doing what she's always wanted to do?
Yeah, exactly.
I noticed one of the other line items on your screen was cut costs.
Hmm.
Yeah, in
Yeah,
fact, I think it was number one. So
it was at the top. Yeah.
can you talk a little bit about that and how, tell us a little story about how one of your clients, how that was a major impact in changing their business?
You know, cutting costs have to be totally upfront. It's the least glamorous and
Yeah.
it's the least
Nobody
dramatic
likes to do
of
that.
all of this. Yeah, nobody likes to, because that means, oh, you mean I've got to negotiate, or I've got to, yeah, I don't want to do that. And to solve that problem, we've got some great people that we work with who do that professionally, even on a solopreneur level, even for just someone who works out of their home. You would be amazed, and I've experienced this myself, because I thought, what better way to learn about this than to test it? So I said, okay, here's my setup, and here's my electric bill and my cable bill and my, all of my little household expenses, and see what you can come up with. Now, I'm not going to retire off the $580 annually that they were able to save me, but I didn't pay a cent to them to find that $500+ that came from the vendors that they negotiated with. So there's no losing in that scenario. But I was able to save $500 out of my annual budget, and I can think of a lot of things I'd rather do that with $500 rather than give it to the electric company or the fuel company.
Yeah. So remind everybody again, we do have the opportunity to get your specific questions answered if you do have a question specifically. And what's usually the first clue? I think I know the answer here, but what's usually the first clue when one of your clients is working with you and they start to notice that big change? What's the first thing you see happen with that client?
Well, they exhale. There was that wonderful movie. Oh, it's a long time ago now. I'm
Yeah.
going to date myself, but
Yeah. Wasn't that
waiting
the movie?
to exhale.
Yeah.
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 And a whole different storyline there, but far too many people in this arena as solopreneurs struggle. They look at their bank statements at the end of the week or the end of the month or at the end of the year, and it's kind of, it can be scary sometimes. I know how that feels. And
Yeah.
so when you start getting that little bit of extra, just to be able to lay your head on your pillow at night and not wonder, okay, am I going to be able to handle the car payment and the fuel payment this month? Or I really, 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 this is the one I hear the most often. I really would love to invest in it, 10 hours a week in a virtual assistant to help me. I could be so much more productive, and I could be and yet, but that's going to cost, and I just don't know if I have the money. And, to know that, well, yeah, actually, I do have the money to do that, or to invest in that training, with people like you, Kathy, and to do it not in a frivolous way, but to do it in an empowered way. Yes, I have the money, and I can make this investment in myself and in my business. Nothing feels better than having that confidence.
So if someone is listening to this recording at a later date and they're thinking, well, I don't make very much money now. I don't know that I can afford Jim to reach out to him. Is there a minimum level that you like to start with? Or do you have a maximum level of annual income of
Great question.
people that you think you can help, that you know you can help?
Yeah. I'll answer it this way. We're working with a startup right now who has zero revenue coming in the door. They came to us with just an idea, and we liked the idea so much. And the more time we spent with them, we liked the person so much. We have creative ways. I mean, I do have bills that I have to pay. I can't work for free all the time, but we created an opportunity where we reduced our upfront, our monthly fee considerably in exchange for a little piece of the profit on the back end. So if we're successful in working with them, they win, we get a little piece of it. And that seems to be working really nicely for us right now. So there's that approach. There's financing approaches that we're able to offer to our clients where if you know if a regular monthly fee is too steep for you, we can do financing where you can bring it down to 75 or 80 or $100 a month, and that suddenly makes it much more viable, knowing that in 5 or 6 months you're going to have a growth in your revenue, and you're going to be able to pay that note off and be responsible with it, and then go on with that revenue staying in your bank account the way we want it to. So yeah, there's always options.
The client circumstance will change, and that's because what I'm hearing is that you've seen it work so often and so well that you'll be able to help somebody at whatever level.
Absolutely. And with our premier clients, we know so strongly that this will work that we put a guarantee in place that if you're working with us on a 12-month basis, in any one of those months, if you don't generate at least enough new revenue to cover our fee, we'll work the next month for free or until the revenue rises back up to a level where it does cover our expenses. So,
oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
So I understand you brought with you a gift for our live people today. Not that anyone here is not live, but for our actual guests that are here today. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, what I would love to offer anyone who's interested, I mentioned it earlier, that little Profit Accelerator experience. It's a 45-minute Zoom call. I always say right up front, because people immediately think it's going to be a gotcha kind of a moment where there's going to be a sales pitch. There's no sales pitch in this. We'll sit down for 35 or 40 minutes. We'll learn a little bit about your business. We'll plug some numbers in, and then we'll take 2 or 3 of our strategies off the shelves. More than likely items in that 12 that we discussed a little earlier. And we'll run the numbers, and I'll show you how over the next 12 months, if you leaned in and if you followed some very specific instructions, that you could realize X dollars in new revenue in your business. And then we'll print up a roadmap that gives you those steps. Do A, B, C, and D to get the results, and that'll be our gift to you, our way of investing in your business. We'll schedule a follow-up call in a couple of weeks, because I know human nature. Everybody says, "Oh, I'll implement it, I'll do the work," and then sometimes we forget. So I like to schedule just check-in calls to be a cheerleader and maybe encourage you to actually do it. And then we're always available to answer questions and be a resource if we can.
And we all get busy. We all need that nudge. Just whenever I get one, I always make sure I thank that person. Oh, that's right, I needed to do that, didn't I? It's like, thank you for the nudge. I appreciate that.
Exactly.
Yeah. So is there any bits of wisdom, last little minute bits of wisdom that you could share that you want to make sure that we go home with today? And as a reminder for everyone on the call today, Julie will be sending out that follow-up email with a link to this recording, as well as contact information, how to reach out to Jim, and also the link. Make sure we have this, Jim, for your Profit Accelerator program. And any bits of wisdom that you could leave us with today that we can put in our pocket and ponder?
I'm going to go with one that is maybe a little broad, but I know I can't get enough encouragement in my life. You know, whether it's my morning meditations or my best friends who I talk to who are always encouraging. So I'm going to be an encourager for you. Each of you has a book, a story, a course, a passion, something that you're trying to communicate with the world because you believe the world's going to be a better place if they hear what you have to say. And I just want to be a cheerleader for you today and say, keep doing it. It's the only way our world is going to get better, is when people like the faces that I'm looking at here today are able to speak their message, have their message resonate, and be part of the change in the world. So, and if the numbers, you know, if you're bummed about what the checking account says, that's a fixable problem. You know, that's a fixable problem. If you don't like the way your website looks, that's a fixable problem. But having that hope ablaze in your heart, only you can control that. So be encouraged and keep at it. Don't ever give up.
Well, and I'll add too that if you're on the call today or listening later and we're not able to catch the beginning when Jim shared his story of his hero's journey, make sure you get a chance to go back and listen to that, because it's quite inspirational and motivational, and definitely helps me better understand your need to help other people. And I love that. Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. So I want to thank everyone for being here today. Thank you, Jim. I've enjoyed this very much, learned a lot. I do hope someone reaches out to you. I know I will be reaching out to you for a follow-up, one of those 45-minute calls, and we'll see where we go. I appreciate you all being here. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out at any time. You guys enjoy the rest of your week.
Thanks, Kathy. Thanks,
Thank
Jim.
you. Bye-bye.
Bye.